Добрый день, глубоко.
Good afternoon, dear guests and colleagues. Today is the 25th of May 2021, 15 almost go time. I would like to announce technical break number 1, please. Да? Слушаю. Хорошо. Technical break number 1 is coming to an end. We're continuing our session. Let me start the Dissertation Committee session dedicated to the defense of dissertation by Antonina Alexandrovna Popova, seeking an academic degree of a candidate of economic sciences in the degree field 080014 World Economy on the topic implementation and of development strategies for enhancing a country's international competitiveness, a review of global experience and Russian practice. Let me open this session. According to the act of the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University, Alexander Gnetov, dated 19th March 2021, I, Natalia Navroskaya, Doctor of Economic Sciences, Professor of the Department of World Economy, St. Petersburg University, was appointed chair of this dissertation committee. This committee includes also Sergei Felixovich Shutyrin, Doctor of Economic Sciences, Professor of the Department of World Economy, St. Petersburg University. Also online with us, Alexander Igorovich Bokarletsky, Doctor of Economic Sciences, Professor of the Department of World Economy, St. Petersburg University. Can you see and hear us? Yes. Pavel Vladimirovich Pavlov, Doctor of Economic Sciences, Director of Institute of Management of Economic, Environmental and Social Systems, the Southern Federal University. Can you hear and see us? Yes. Galina Alexandrovna Shmarlovskaya, Doctor of Economic Sciences, Belarusian State Economic University, Belarus. Can you hear and see us? Yes, I can see you very well. Also with us is Antonina Alexandrovna Popova, the candidate, who is also participating in an online format. Can you see and hear us? Yes, I can. Considering that the candidate is on an online connection with us, I would like to ask the other members of the dissertation committee, do you agree with this procedure? I think we can continue our session in this format. Alexander Igorovich, yes, I am online myself, so that's fine. Pavel Vladimirovich Pavlov? I don't object. Galina Alexandrovna? I agree with you, of course, with this, of course. And then, of course, then we continue our dissertation committee session. And since all of the members have decided in favor of continuing our session, I continue. Then also with us is Olga Yurovna Trofimenko, candidate of Economic Sciences, Associate Professor of the Department of World Economy, St. Petersburg University, who is the academic supervisor of the dissertation. Please, all those who are with us online, turn off your microphones, but leave your phones on for emergency communication. I would like to remind you that there's a live broadcast of our session accompanied by interpretation from Russian into English and English into Russian. There's also is broadcast on the website of St. Petersburg University, and also this website has an email address where you can send your questions, and then it will be transferred to me by the technical services. But these questions should be signed and have a direct relation to the presentation of the dissertation, and also the discussion, the academic discussion, focusing on the dissertation. All questions who are not signed or which have no affiliation of the author of the question, no questions of this kind will be read, and in accordance with the procedure of awarding St. Petersburg University degrees of academic of candidate of sciences and doctor of sciences, any legitimate session of dissertation committee should consist of 5 members. All 5 members are here, and three of the members are in online regime with us, and we have an audio-visual contact with them. Therefore, the quorum is there. I would like to go through the agenda of the procedure. The first short presentation by the chair person about the paperwork that has been submitted by the dissertation. The author dissertation, about 5 minutes. A short presentation of the candidate seeking the academic degree, and of not more than 15 minutes. Questions to the candidate strictly on the presentation, not more than 2 minutes. And then the candidate will have time, not more than 5 minutes, to answer all the questions. Then all members of the dissertation committee will take turns speaking about their impressions about the dissertation, with their reviews. Therefore, 10 minutes per speaker, and then the chairperson will do the same, again 10 minutes. Then the candidate will have 20 minutes to answer all the questions and comments. Then there will be an open floor discussion, and all those who are present will have not more than 2 minutes per turn. If you are willing to speak out during this time, please enter your name into the logbook, and then when you are given the floor, please introduce yourself. Then the chairperson will then present all the questions that have arrived by email, and all questions that will take more than 2 minutes to read will not be read. The answers of the defendant, not more 2 minutes per question. Then the academic supervisor will have 3 minutes to present her views. Then there will be a deliberation time and an open roll call voting. Then with the count, and then following the count, a decision will be taken to award or not to award the sought degree, and then the concluding statement from the candidate. Do you have any objections to the procedure? Could you please? No questions, no objection, no. If there are no objections, then I will go over the agenda. Please turn off your mobile telephone. But those colleagues who are online with us, please don't turn off your telephones for emergency communication. Only your microphones should be turned off. The dissertation of Antonina Alexandrovna Popova, seeking an academic degree of economics, candidate of economic sciences, in the degree field 080014, World Economy, on the topic application of implementation of development strategies for enhancing the country's international competitiveness, a review of global experience and Russian practice, was accepted for defense on the 3rd of March 2021. Antonina Alexandrovna wrote her dissertation in St. Petersburg University, supervised by Olga Yurovna Trofimenko, candidate of economic sciences, associate professor of the Department of World Economy, St. Petersburg University. A number of publications that cover the key issues tackled in the dissertation. Number 5 in refereed journals from the list of the Minister of Science of Russian Federation, 2 publications, and World Science of Scopus, 2 publications as well. All the documents that have been submitted by the applicant meet the requirements of the procedure of awarding degrees in St. Petersburg University, and they are kept in the personal file of the candidate and are available here in the room. Before we give the floor to the candidate, I have a question for the members of the Dissertation Committee. Do you have any general questions? Do we need to go over all the documents that have been submitted? No questions? No need to read through all of them. So therefore, Antonina, Alexandrovna, your time for presentation. Dear Natalia Anatolovna, I would like to share my screen with the presentation. Can you see my slide? This is my first slide. Yes, we can see it very well. Dear members of the Dissertation Committee, dear attendees, I, Popova, Antonina, Alexandrovna, present to your attention a dissertation for the degree of Candidate of Economic Sciences in the degree field 080014, World Economy, on the topic implementation of strategic development programs to increase international competitiveness of the country, world experience and Russian practice. The relevance of the topic of the research. The relevance is ensured by the fact that the tightening of international competition, the current changes in economic conditions, force states to reconsider the factors of their competitiveness and look for new drivers of their development. Often in this, they assign an important role to the development and the implementation of strategic programs aimed at developing competitiveness factors. The question of the effectiveness of these strategies remain highly relevant. Second technical break is announced.
Пожалуйста, вы нас видите, слышите? С вами нет аудиовизуального контакта. Павел Владимирович. Что, звоним?
Я вас слышу, да, добрый день еще раз. Слышно меня?
Да, Павел Владимирович, вы на месте, да? Мы вас не видим.
Я вижу вас.
А нужно обязательно...
У меня включена камера.
Что?
Камера включена у меня.
Говорит, что камера включена. Угу.
Слышно меня сейчас?
Слышно хорошо, вас не видно. Поэтому мы вас потеряли.
Да, у меня просто, когда Антонина запустила презентацию, у меня вылетело немножко, вот я начинаю, видно, связь плохая. Сейчас видно меня? Слышно?
Слышно хорошо.
Но не видно, да?
Да.
Нет, я вижу, например. Я вижу Павла Владимировича и всех присутствующих.
Да, сейчас видно.
Лариса Викторовна, что мы
Да,
делаем?
у меня сейчас просто прогрузилась презентация, может, поэтому был сбой какой-то. Тут связь не очень хорошая, показывает, что... Но другой связи я сейчас не получу, я уже с телефона подключился.
Вот, все, сейчас.
Просто
Сейчас
другого,
видим.
как бы,
все,
я
Павел Владимирович, сейчас
сделать.
видим. Все, начинаем дальше, да? Антонина Александровна.
We're continuing. Antonina, Alexandrovna, are you ready? So, should I start the slide again? When did Pavel Vladimirovich finish?
Да, это Александр Игоревич, да.
Просто у меня проблема, когда включается презентация у Антонины, у меня пропадает связь. Вот может быть с этим. А можно ли как-то, чтобы, ну, может быть, без презентации лучше будет? Презентацию рассылали, чтобы я не вываливался.
Без презентации нашего докладчика?
Ну да, чтобы...
Ну давайте, да, наверное.
Ну давайте так, да. Объявлять, что мы будем без презентации?
Просто да, просто когда
Антонина,
презентация не
можете
демонстрируется,
прекратить
у меня
демонстрацию? Мы проверим, пожалуйста.
Да, конечно, я
Спасибо.
прекратила...
Теперь мы видим Павла Владимировича, да?
Да, видно с этим проблема, что у меня канал, видно, слабой пропускной способности, и я уже и так с телефона переподключился.
Все понятно, все, тогда...
Ну, лучше не смогу.
Ну ладно. Только мы будем без презентации. Ну хорошо. Все, закрываем, да? Технический перерыв номер 2.
The technical break number 2 is over. Well, we proceed without slides for technical reasons. Antonina, Alexandra, yes. Thank you very much, Natalia. I would like to talking about the presentation. Technical break number 3.
Вот появился.
Появился.
Слушайте, у нас ведь кворум 4, но исчезает он на какое-то
Да.
время. Что мы будем... Это мы так никогда не...
Да. Технический перерыв номер 3 закрываем.
Technical break number 3 is over. Please, Natalia, Antonina, Alexandra. Thank you very much. I would like to talk about the relevance of the topic. The relevance of the research topic is ensured by the fact that tightening of international competition and the current changes in economic conditions force states to reconsider the factors of their competitiveness and look for new drivers for their development. Often in this they assign an important role to development and the implementation of strategic programs aimed at developing competitiveness factors. The question of the effectiveness of these strategies remain highly relevant. This is also of great importance in the context of discussion about Russia's positions in the world economy. If there is a positive causal relation between the development and implementation of such programs and the growth of competitiveness, this practice can serve as one of the ways to increase domestic competitiveness. The purpose, object, and subject of study. The aim of the study is to formulate recommendations for improving the practice of using strategic programs to increase Russia's international competitiveness in the context of the ideas about the national competitiveness of countries changing under the influence of global threats. The object of research is national competitiveness of a country and its determining factors, and the subject is the dynamics of the country's international competitiveness in response to the development and implementation of strategic development programs. The theoretical and practical significance of this station is due to the fact that the main provisions, conclusions, and recommendations reflect the increment of scientific knowledge and can be used for further research in this area, including for disclosing the factors determining competitiveness, changing their structure, relative importance, and assessing the effectiveness of strategic programs as a tool to increase the country's international competitiveness. The practical recommendations formulated in the work can also be used to improve strategic approaches to increasing Russian competitiveness and in a number of teaching courses. Among the main results of the study, the following should be noted. The dissertation proposes a new interpretation of the term international competitiveness as a country's ability to maintain long-term growth in the nation's well-being by increasing productivity in the production of goods and services in demand on the international market without depleting its national and social capital. This interpretation partly corresponds to the ideas of more traditional teachings, for example, the theory of economic growth, the theory of economic development, theories of international trade, the theory of dependent development, and the ideas of modern scientific views on sustainable development. It means meeting the needs of modern society without jeopardizing the ability of future generations to have what they vitally need. The author is inclined to believe this concept, although it carries a positive message, is not realistic. The growth of global competition leads to the fact that the ideas of protecting the interests of society and preserving natural resources are fading into the background. The government decisions can be made under the influence of a limited number of influential economic actors. Analysis of the dynamics of the three most popular multi-factor indices of international competitors include the following key factors: technological equipment of production, high innovative potential, macroeconomic and financial stability, relative expert specialization of the country, creating conditions in it for the restoration of renewable natural resources. These factors have been important for many years, and the current world economic conditions, their relevance has grown even more. The analysis of the world practice of using strategic programs in order to develop the competitiveness of countries made it possible to distinguish three time periods which are characterized by different ideas about the feasibility of the implementing such initiatives. These time frames from the late 1940s to the 1960s, from the 1970s to the mid 1990s, and from the late 1990s to the present. A more detailed analysis of the cases confirmed the fact that the most competitive countries are implementing strategic programs with the aim of developing the above key factors of international competitiveness on an ongoing basis. Singapore, the EU countries, and the United States are focusing on the development of technological and innovative capital by attracting public and private investment in high-tech manufacturing, R&D and education. A number of countries such as Singapore and the EU countries are also considering the need to develop natural capital. In general, the implementation of these strategic initiatives helped to attract financial resources in the above countries, as well as to mobilize the efforts of government institutions, businesses and various funds. However, developing countries are developing strategies on a less regular basis. Every second strategy implemented in these states is proposed by international organization or institution. Their activity is partly due to their work to advance the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals, which are often criticized for their controversial lack of a clear financing mechanism and an insufficient focus on the economic development of countries. Analysis of Russia's international competitiveness has revealed a number of factors hindering its growth. Among them, it's worth highlighting the dependence of the economy on income from energy resources, in which it is difficult to maintain high economic indicators, insufficient support for the development of high-tech and innovative companies, as well as the resource-intensive nature of economic growth. At the same time, within the period under consideration from the beginning of the 90s, the state has developed and implemented strategic programs for the development of the above factors. An important element of Russia's technological and innovative policy should be programs for the development of high-tech industries, reducing the concentration of public funds among a limited list of large businesses, simplifying the business environment, regulating the activities of natural monopolies, and developing cooperation between the educational institutions, domestic and foreign businesses, and raising public awareness about scientific and technological trends, new training and retraining opportunities, as well as the development of inter-country dialogue on ongoing research and development. To include domestic technology companies in global production systems, it is necessary to develop and implement strategic programs for the development of non-resource export and export of services, refine the existing system of technical regulation, harmonize relevant regulations with partner states. To reduce the dependence of the Russian economy on revenues from non-renewable energy resources, the author proposed stimulating the development of alternative energy sources and exporting electricity from renewable sources, including a tax on CO2 emissions and subsidizing the transition to the consumption of renewable energy. In conclusion, the author proposed borrowing the practice of developing highly competitive countries in the development and implementation of strategies aimed at developing ways to restore the environment and renewable resources. These traditions can be costly in the short term, however, in the long term, increase in the competitiveness of the economy should not be achieved at the expense of the depletion of the country's social and natural resources. Thank you. Thank you very much, Antonina Alexandrovna. Questions? Do you have any questions to the applicant on the presentation and on the text of the dissertation?
Вопросов нет.
No questions. Okay, may I ask a question? Dear Antonina Alexandrovna, thank you very much for your presentation. So you said three novelty factors. You suggest that there's a new definition that you propose. So what is the uniqueness of your definition from the existing approaches? Galina Alexandrovna, thank you very much for your question. I also noticed that this question was part of your review. Thank you very much for this review. Answering your question, I would like to say that the main focus of this treatment is in the literature is high growth and expert levels. The author thinks that that these approaches exclude the depletion of natural resources, and I think that this is not correct, because the depletion, the exhaustion will diminish the competitiveness. Therefore, I would like to include into the economic factors social and environmental factors, because this will affect the development of a country in the long term, and therefore so for example, I base my definition on the idea and the literature that any change that will benefit some people is desirable and should be included in the treatment of competitiveness. There are no external reviews have been submitted. Therefore, would like to give the floor to the members of the Dissertation Committee. All reviews have been published on the website of St. Petersburg University. Maybe I suggest that you focus on the key issues, key points, and only critical remarks and questions. Do you have any objections? There's a question. Would you like to answer all the questions or after each review? Can you answer after each review? And the applicant? I positively, yes. Therefore, I'm giving the floor to the reviews. Please, Pogorelski Alexander Viktorovich, could you read your review? Dear Chairperson, the candidate, dear members of the Dissertation Committee, and the relevance is there, is undoubted. The world and Russia are in a new era when competitiveness is formed by a new normality, and we have to take account of many additional factors, as the applicant has already touched on some of them. The one, for example, when how competitiveness is affected by the external environment. And so the concepts of sustainable development that used not to be in this focus now are shaping competitiveness. What I liked in the dissertation, very good systematization of all the theories and concepts and economic character in the area of competitiveness. Also different comparison different practices in different countries. Very good study of the United States, the European Union, and some small economies, for example, Singapore and developing countries, including Russia. Everything has been systematized and conclusions were drawn, and so the logic is there. Scientific methods are used. The applicant, the candidate, presented her results in different publications, peer-reviewed publications, and the originality of research is there. The author broke her material into three periods and identified different factors that affected different periods, and this is a sort of a precursor of new post-coronavirus theories connected with green theory, green economy, practical and theoretical significance. But there are some issues, of course, for maybe some naivete of the author when she looked at different programs that you can put a framework, for example, within the framework of the digital economy, so much in vogue today. Well, the practices, unfortunately, practical practice shows us that they cannot be done. They cannot be done. For example, in my review, I mentioned that well, there should be more focus on what the management authors studied alternative decisions they proposed in their works, and black swans can be created within a day, and create global effects. You cannot calculate and digitize everything. So the author bases her work on the traditional number of factors. Maybe they should be expanded and the future work. And the third critical remark: the author lacks an analysis of the institutionalized environment to increase national competitiveness. I think that you could look at the works by Asimoglu and Robinson that focus on the successes and failures of different countries in using extractive and inclusive factors and the corresponding institutions. But the work has form, and the relevance, the originality, the practical significance, the theoretical, everything is there. So the work is a completed study, and so the author deserves being awarded a degree of economic sciences. Candidate of economic sciences. Antonina, thank you very much. Alexander Igorovich, thank you very much for your advice, for your critical statements. I will take them into consideration in my future work. Thank you very much for your positive assessment of the work. I would like to answer 3 of your key questions. As far as the first one, classics of management, Chandler and Drucker and Ansoff, Mansberg and Harilla, well, in terms of competitiveness and international comparison. The author is familiar with the ideas regarding these issues. Nevertheless, we decided to focus on examining the country's competitiveness through the prism of government regulation and government efforts to create favorable conditions for the development of business, technology, innovation, and the country's environmental capital. In the context of this task, the author analyzed 369 literature sources. They need to analyze the works of management classics, could significantly exceed the number of and significantly complicates the process of writing a dissertation within a given time frame. But of course, it is a worthwhile endeavor to do. But it's for future research. So the next one is, as far as the digitalization, well, the author agrees that there are certain restrictions regarding the calculation and digitization of data. To assess the effectiveness of strategic programs, a series of quantitative and qualitative data are needed, and the goals of set in a particular strategy on changes and the indicators of competitiveness factors, on microeconomic conditions, historical context, psychological and behavior factors of economic actors. Unfortunately, only a small part of the above data is in the public domain. Most of the information is either not published or collected. At the same time, the refusal to carry out such analysis, as a consequence, the absence of any results, can reduce interest in the practical use of this approach to increase the international competitiveness of countries, as well as further theoretical research of its effectiveness. Therefore, we decided to focus only on a certain set of factors, which is a kind of approximation to reality, Other events and microeconomic conditions that are taken, black swans, are taken into account in the factor the role of chance, which can be attributed, for example, to economic sanctions or the coronavirus pandemic, which led to serious shifts in the production and consumption. Undoubtedly, with a more detailed analysis, the list of factors of international competitiveness presented in the dissertation should be detailed and include, among other things, psychological and behavioral factors that can significantly complicate the implementation of state programs to improve competitiveness in modern times. As far as the third critical remark, thank you for the advice on including the works of Acemoglu and Robinson and further research on the topic of international competitiveness. The author agrees that institutions, institutional norms, and the institutional environment have a decisive influence on the economic interests and motivation of institutional actors, and therefore on the state and the level of countries' competitiveness. In part, these aspects were considered through the analysis of the works of Vishnegradsky, Poltarovich, Poltapova, and others. If you have any other questions, thank you very much, Antonina. I am happy with your replies. Now I would like to give the floor to Pavel Vladimirovich Pavlov. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. I took a close look at the dissertation, and my assessment is positive as well. I put down some critical remarks. I will focus on two of them. Two key documents were not used, were omitted from the study. Is the first one is the act of president, and then this. Oh, and the second one is the act of government. Thank you very much. Pavel Vladimirovich, thank you very much for your questions and for your review. Very interesting and useful to read what you wrote. As far as the key issues, questions that you just read, I would like to say the following. Thank you very much for thank you very much for advice to include the presidential degree on national development, and I agree with the comment that consider the world economic forum that competitive countries should include a comfortable environment, and these goals do not contradict our ideas. As far as the comment, the national projects on the 12 development strategic development programs. There are thank you very much. In 12 areas, these include healthcare, demographics, culture, safe and high-quality roads, housing, urban environment, and others. The object of this dissertation research is only those strategies that are more aimed at increasing the trade and economic factors of competitiveness. Development programs that aim to improve other components, for example, the quality of national healthcare, are not examined in this work. All they are very important. Good health of the population leads to higher labor productivity and therefore to higher production values. The author will undoubtedly take them into account when further researching Russia's competitiveness and will certainly focus on that later. Thank you very much. Do I need to comment on your other questions? Thank you very much. Well, as far as the second, there are two important projects. The first one is the digital economy of the Russian Federation, and the second, international cooperation and the fuel sector. So probably they absolutely concern the work that you're doing, and so if you could include that into your future work, it would definitely strengthen your research. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for your replies. Now, Galina Alexandrovna, you're given the floor. Thank you very much. Dear members of the Dissertation Council, thank you very much for allowing me to take part in this session. First of all, I would like to say that the dissertation conforms with the degree field, economic sciences, and the passport of the degree field, world economy. And this is very important for transition economy countries, and because they have just joined the international competition and they have to meet international standards. Therefore, the requirements for the search of competitive advantages are increased for companies and countries, and therefore these issues and also these issues are of course coming on to the fore during crisis as we are living through now, and of course the government is a player in this, and also but we need to find the assessment criteria for the assessment of the effectiveness of national strategies, strategic programs. Therefore, the scientific and practical interest is focused on the study of competitiveness of countries with transition economies and identify macro and microeconomic parameters of competitiveness and instruments of state management in this area. So the author looked at it through the prism of the link between social and economic strategies, and which makes this work also is very important if we take the instruments to study the EU countries. Academic novelty includes the the fact that the author of the dissertation sharpened some of the definitions of the concepts, such as the competitiveness of a country, competition at the international level, competitive advantages of a country, and sustainable competitiveness, and also introduced a definition of the competitiveness of a country. The results of a comparative analysis of the methodologies that relate to the study of competitiveness of countries that are used by the International Institute of Management Development and the World Economic Forum and Solability think tank. Have allowed to the author to systematize three approaches to the quantitative assessment of the level of international competitiveness. And also she looked at it through the prism of the current factors, including the pandemic. And of course, very important is that three periods were identified and compared. And the author used strictly the criteria that she developed and applied these criteria without exceptions to the periods and to different countries, including the EU countries, the United States, Singapore, and China. And there is a lot of empirical data that has been used. And we just heard that the study of the empirical data allowed the author to identify the specificity of strategic initiatives in these countries. For example, some focusing on technological and innovation capital by attracting state and private investment to high-tech production and R&D and education. Also, the increase of the share of renewable energy sources, and the assessment of strategical programs in Russia as an instrument of affecting the competitiveness of the country has been carried out successfully in this and the author identifies weaknesses of such programs and also strengths and why such programs were developed, aiming at what weak links in the competitiveness of the Russian economy they are directed. And the author managed to create recommendations of how to improve, to enhance the competitiveness of Russian economy, and present some practical recommendations. The recommendations are valid, while the author uses an impressive number of studies, impressive number of sources, especially in chapter 1. A great work and very important work. And the author not only just read the sources, but studied and assessed the sources. The quality of the work is there. A very high professional level of working with the materials. Of course, I would now mention some.
В каждой стране есть свои подходы.
I know that in every country there are different approaches, and maybe I would like to. The station is research work. Well, when you set a goal, you need to think about the theoretical contribution that this work will make. So therefore, I already mentioned the new definition of the competitiveness of a country. What are the other approaches to competitiveness? I would like to I already mentioned that the author used a systemic approach, but in order to substantiate your definition, you should have reveal your definition of this category. Well, many approaches have been addressed, and for a theory that was developed in chapter 1, the author should have clearly said what exact concepts should be used in developing strategic programs. The theories come from authors, and it makes the station look a bit like textbook, an economics textbook. So maybe I should have done something to avoid that. And Russia is a leading country in the EU, and so it would be great to hear what can be applied by this union. So but nevertheless, my assessment, and I will here endorse the previous speakers, that the dissertation meets the requirements of St. Petersburg University regulations on awarding academic degrees of candidate of sciences and Doctor of Sciences, and Popova Antonina Alexandrovna deserves being awarded the sought degree of candidate of economic sciences. Thank you. Thank you, Galina Alexandrovna. Antonina Alexandra, your time for answer. Thank you very much for your questions and your assessment. It was very useful. Thank you very much, especially about the conceptual base of the work, about methodology, about the process of research, how to carry out this. I would like to start with conceptual parts. well, this is this competitiveness links different interdependencies between companies, between products and product producers, etc. Competitiveness of a country is an aggregate that is based on the competitiveness of product producers, manufacturers, and the economic system of the country plays a role in this, of course. As far as your advice about the evolution of the theoretical problems. Thank you for the advice and the way of presenting the evolution of theoretical approaches to go from the problem, highlighting the aspects studied by scientists, which allows a more systematic presentation of the collected material. This advice will be taken into account in publications based on the materials of the dissertation research and subsequent works of the author. Thank you very much for the comments that make sense to explore the list of measures to increase the country's competitiveness that can be used for the EU countries, member states. Based on the general conclusion of the study, the author recommends the development of such programs both in Russia and in the countries of the integration union. To give more detailed comments, it is necessary to investigate the existing problems of the EU countries, which was not done in this work. It is worth noting that the main exported goods of Kazakhstan, for example, the second largest economy in the union, mineral resources, 70.8% of total exports, which characterizes the raw materials orientation of the economy of Kazakhstan. Russia is therefore naturally not interested in importing this category of goods in large volumes, which explains the low indicators of domestic trade, of international trade between these countries. In general, domestic trade in the EU fluctuates between 55 to 60 billion US dollars, while trade with third countries is 750 to 800 billion US dollars per year. This fact suggests that the issues of technological export development are incomplete. The technological structure of the industry of the EU member states, with the share of the high-tech sector amounting to 2 to 4%, is almost 3 times behind the level of the countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, where the high-tech sector accounts for 7 to 14% of industrial production. Part of the problem may lie in the protracted harmonization of technical regulation in the EU countries. They should improve the conditions for the free circulation of domestic goods in the markets of the EU. Member states' mutual recognition of results, elimination of trade barriers, reduction in the cost of confirming the conformity of goods supplied to foreign markets, and the development of export within the Union. The author is also inclined to believe that in order to solve this problem, it is necessary to develop and implement a program for the development of high-tech industries, increase public awareness of scientific and technological trends, new opportunities for training and retraining in partner countries, as well as the development of an inter-country dialogue on ongoing R&D. I would like to stop here. Do I need to talk in more detail about what I read in the review? Thank you very much, and that's enough. Very interesting. Thank you very much, Antonina Alexandrovna. Now the floor is given to Professor Turin. Dear colleagues, my assessments coincide with what we've just heard, so I will shorten my review. The work is relevant. There's nothing here to add to what we've just heard, and the validity of provisions and conclusions and recommendations is based on a good theoretical and methodological basis. I agree with Galina Alexandrovna that a lot of sources have been tackled, a lot of documents have been studied, both national and international. Empirical studies are also involved and drawn upon, and including the original empirical studies of the author. This allows us to be sure that the conclusions are verified and very valid. The results were presented in different conferences and seminars. If we talk about the theoretical significance, I would like to state the following three. First is the proposed periodization of application in the world practice of strategic programs of development to increase the competitiveness of countries. Second is identifying the most important factors of international competitiveness that shape the dynamics of the development of competitiveness today, and then identifying of some elements of causal relationships between between provisions of some strategic programs and the indicators of competitiveness in the countries that we taken for analysis. If we talk about the practical importance, it involves the fact that the conclusions that can be used for further research into international competitiveness, and in order to, for example, reveal affecting factors. And the second is that the results that have been obtained can be used to enhance strategic approaches to the development of programs, competitiveness programs of the Russian Federation, and also as part of the Eurasian Union, of course, and of course that this material can be used to teach courses in world economy, international economic relations, microeconomics, and other special courses for economics students. So on the whole, the research of Antonina Alexandrovna Popova testifies to a deep understanding of that the author has of the gamut of international competitiveness issues and interrelations. Well, I have some flaws to speak about, and I would like to, there are quite many, but maybe I will just say a few things. and I would like to say just a few of them. For example, the first one is talking about Marx, for example. You cannot put him into the list of authors that contributed to the institutional aspects of development of national competitiveness. This is just a declarative statement. And the historical overview has much of reference nature because it doesn't really present any study of the evolution of these views. For example, the author, I couldn't find out why you put the authors in this sequence: Gilpin, Schumpeter, Marx, Keynes, List, Carey, and Porter. Why in this order? Well, this is an ad hoc list, I think, ad hoc sequence. I would like to see a better connection between paragraphs 1.2 and 2.1, and I would like to see the material of the section instability of financial markets. Doesn't correspond. Well, the material of this, the text doesn't correspond to the name, and also the same drawback can be attributed to the section, the strengthening of the protection of national producers. And chapter 3, I think, is the least successful because there's no logic in it. A whole number of provisions don't look very convincing, or arguments. For example, why do you say that the optimal level of inflation for Russia is a stable inflation of 2.0, 2.5%? Well, these reasonings about inflations don't involve any context of the earlier periods of the development of Russian economy, when in the 1990s inflation numbered by digit numbers. So it's unclear the next why the problem of increasing national competitiveness, how this is treated by the Russian leadership, and how it is compatible with other priorities of the Russian government. And also on page 182, the Russian version, we see that the author recommends to study the experience of Singapore. Do you invite yourself to study it, or what? Well, the work should have been read through carefully and proofread. Well, the text should be for typos, incorrect formulations, ambiguities, undefined abbreviations. Had you proofread your work, a lot of this you could have weeded out. What are some examples of unclear formulations? For example, the ratio between the following concepts of competitiveness and comparative advantages. Comparative and competitive advantages. Well, you know, you either compare the first or the second pair. And then also there are some mistakes that education and healthcare you attribute to common goods and public goods, and whether whether I'm not sure that the names for figures 6 to 9 are good, and of course that diminishes the attitude, this impression about the work. Well, yes, even with that, I would like to make the following conclusion, that the work is an independent research study, and it meets the requirements of of St. Petersburg University on awarding academic degrees in St. Petersburg University, and therefore candidate Popova Antonina Alexandrovna deserves being awarded an academic degree of the candidate of economic sciences in the degree field 080014 World Economy. Please, thank you very much, Sergei Felix. Thank you very much for your critical remarks and recommendations. I agree with all of them, but I would like to provide my answers. Before I do that, Natalia Anatольевna, before I do that, I'd like to ask Natalia Anatольевna, there are some slides that could answer some of the critical remarks, because but we not to jeopardize the connection with. Let's try without the slides. Can we do that? Would you like to show your statistics? I can start. And no slides, no. Let's not risk it. Please describe them by words. Yeah. You don't need to answer all the questions. If you agree with some questions, just answer those with which you don't agree. Thank you very much, Alex Sergeyevson. The first comment about the theoretical basis of the work. I would like to refer to slide 15, where I tried to present a more complete list of
в диссертации.
Of authors whose works were used in the work. But in general, I agree with this comment. I didn't mention all the text in order to make the text short. I should have not done that. The list is quite long, and the next about marks. The author agrees with the reviewer that in the introduction of Karl Marx's dissertation should be attributed to the Marxists. It's noted in the text of the work itself. At the same time, the author subscribes to the opinion of Rustil Makhmutovich Nureyev, who in his work The Historical Fate of the first great discovery of Karl Marx, notes that Marx actually acts as a predecessor of institutionalism, offering a new approach to the analysis of economics and law, first implemented in full in Capital. The Belarusian economist Ludmila Vladimirovna Belova, in her article Always Modern Karl Marx, also puts Marx with the predecessors of institutionalism, since he substantiated the formational approach to the development of society in terms of productive forces and production relations. And so, for this reason, introduction to the dissertation, the author referred Marx to the number of authors who contribute to the institutional aspects of development of national competitiveness, maybe by mistake. Regarding the commentary on the logic of the considered evolution of scientific views on international competitiveness, it is worth noting that it was based on a sequence of teachings from the most traditional ones, such as the theory of economic growth, the theory of economic development, the theory of international trade, the theory of dependent development, to modern scientific views on sustainable development. The author considered it necessary to complete the theoretical part of the study by considering a relatively new ideas of sustainable competitiveness, since it pays great attention to the environmental component of the country's competitiveness. The analysis that follows in the dissertation is carried out inter alia through the prism of this understanding. Thank you for your comment on the need to highlight a clear relationship between paragraphs 1.2 and 2.1. The purpose of section 1.2, Problems of Determining Competitiveness, is a consideration of the content of the concept of international competitiveness in more detail due to the growing scientific interest in rethinking this concept. The author also made an attempt to formulate the author's interpretation of the term. The purpose of paragraph 2.1, Actual Methods of Assessing the International Competitiveness, is an analysis of approaches to the quantitative assessment of the level of international competitiveness of countries. Antonina, technical break number 4, please.
Посмотрите свою камеру.
Спасибо.
Вы уже движетесь.
Технический.
Technical break number 4 is over. Antonina Alexandrovna, please continue. Pavel Vladimirovich, would you like to say something? Pavel Vladimirovich, may I continue? Well, Sergei Felixovich, please, please stop answering Professor Turin's questions. No, please continue answering. Thank you for the. It should be in paragraph 1.2. It should have been added that in most cases definitions of international competitiveness fall into three groups. The first focuses on the comparison of costs and prices, which gives an approximate value of the unit wages, which is a function of, for example, productivity, wages, or the exchange rate. The second examines the country's competitiveness in the context of foreign trade, changes in the share of domestic goods in domestic trade, volumes and structure of exports. The third defines international competitiveness as the country's ability to realize the goals of economic policy, to achieve sustainable high rates of growth of incomes of the population and the prosperity of the nation. It is the third group of definitions that underlines the multivariate quantitative assessment of competitiveness, which is considered in 2.1. According to the author, this approach is more systemic and reflects the versatility of the concept of national competitiveness. Number 5, regarding the titles of the section, instability of the financial markets, and strengthening the protection of national risk producers. It's worth noting that they were chosen in connection with the main focus to which the author wanted to draw attention. According to the Bank of Russia, financial stability is the resilience of the financial system to shocks and its smooth and efficient functioning. Initial risks, bubbles in certain markets, loss of stability by large financial institutions tackled alongside external risks to financial stability, such as global economic crisis, deterioration of external economic situation, etc. In this section, strengthening the protection of national producers, the author examines the global trend towards an increase in the number of new protectionist barriers being introduced, as well as the corresponding actions of the USA, China, and the EU, which account for more than 50% of world trade. According to the WTO, from mid-October 2019 to mid-May 2020, 56 new trade restrictions on imports were introduced globally, affecting goods totaling $423.1 billion US.
Процентов мирового импорта.
So this indicator, is very high. As far as number 6, the author agrees with the opinion of the reviewer that in paragraph 2.3 it would be worthwhile to give some generalizations of the programs under consideration, the strategizing subjects selected for analysis, for example, in terms of the total amount of allocated financial resources and the number of companies involved in projects. Unfortunately, in aggregated form, these statistics are practically not available in the public domain. In order to make these comparisons, it is necessary to carefully read the text of each strategic program and the corresponding annexes and additional cause acts. Nevertheless, if we look at such indicators, the expenditures of countries, number 7, regarding the country of the optimal level of inflation for Russia, it is worth noting that Russia is one of the many countries whose economy has gone through a period of high inflation. High inflation in absolute values. Russia, in terms of education, Russia invests in education 7 times less than the UN in real money, as far as technology, for example, in terms of the R&D, the level of investment is less than anywhere else in the countries. So, as far as the in education, the U.S. In 7 programs, 190 billion euros were invested in R&D, including the Horizon program and the so $35 million and billions of dollars in the United States. In $5.9 billion. I looked at the text that you. Thank you very much. I looked at the text. I looked at the text that you presented, not the data that you collected later. If you agree with my remark, you agree. If you don't agree, well, I should have included the table. That's why I created a slide that would answer your remark. Next time I will compare makes these comparisons and the work about the optimal level of inflation. The high inflation in Israel and Germany up to 1949, China up to 1950, and Japan 48. The analysis of this historical period was not included in the goals of the dissertation research. At the same time, the present stage of development, these countries are characterized by an inflation rate of less than 2.8% max. The average inflation rate in developed countries as a rule is also around 1.5, 2.5. For example, in the Eurozone in 2019, inflation was 1.33. In the US, 1.8%. In Singapore, 0.5%. In the UK, 1.7%. It is on this that the author's assumption is based on that moderate and stable inflation for Russia is 2.5%. At the same time, the author agrees with the opinion of Yakov Moiseyevich Merkin, economist from the Russian Academy of Sciences, that even in this inflation rate, even if this inflation rate is the most suitable for Russia, it is difficult to achieve in the current economic situation. As far as the conversation about the issue of increasing national competitiveness as a priority for the Russian leadership, it is worth noting that it is taking some steps. For example, in 2015, the Russian Expert Center A state institute for the support of non-resource experts was created to provide Russian exporters with a wide range of support measures. An active discussion of the expert community on the application of set of measures for financial information support of small and medium-sized businesses is taking part in the St. Petersburg National Economic Forum. As far as the Singapore, with regard to the comment on the need to study experience of Singapore, it is worth noting that an author called for taking into account only some of the measures implemented in this country. We understand that the economies of Russia and Singapore are different. In general, there are no identical economies in the world. Nevertheless, the experience of one country solving a certain problem can still be borrowed. Singapore is one of the most competitive economies in the world, thanks in part to strong international trade and ease of doing business. Singapore customs is one of the fastest in the world. This result was achieved due to the convenient location of seaports and airports, as well as the high speed of customs clearance. Please be shorter, because we are falling behind the time. I will shorten my answers. This experience could be applied in Russia. As far as the need to reveal a number of concepts, it should be noted that an author subscribes to the opinion of Professor Tatiana Gogolova, who in her article The Country's Competitiveness, the Essence and Problems of Regulation, proposed the following definitions. Comparative advantage is an abstract category that is used to... I am happy with your answers. Enough. Please don't... Well, you miss... I didn't criticize which... I didn't say that that in Russia we should not use Singapore. Well, what I meant is that you formulated this. I would like you to stop answering my questions. Thank you very much. And because of short time, I'm finishing my answers. If I need to answer in more detail, I will be happy to do it. I will read my review. I also would like to side with the opinions of the previous speakers about the relevance of this work in literature. There's a shortage of empirical studies in the literature. The validity of research provisions is based on the following: that the work uses a wide range of fundamental economic concepts, both found both in Russian and international studies. There's a big, also a wide range of methods, logical case study method, synthesis, and then that the publications spell out the issues, the structure of the work meets the standards, and this kind of work. And so this is a multi-faceted work. Well, this is original research with a logical structure, with relevant issues for Russia, theoretically valid. Well, the empirical base is quite wide, and the richer review is also detailed, and of course there's some flaws in the literature review, but the term of competitiveness acquires a new interpretation, and for example, I support the idea of the author that sustainable competitiveness is a positive, but is not realistic at the moment in the world economic the trade system. In general, the work is rounded study involving a lot of empirical study, but of course it has some issues that I'd like to tackle. The author did a quantitative and well-argued analysis of research, and the author has made a qualitative and reasoned analysis of the approach to the definition of international competitiveness. So given the author's definition, where the author proposed to define international competitiveness as the country's ability to maintain long-term growth of the nation's welfare by increasing in productivity in the production of goods, services, and demand on the international market without depleting their natural social capital. At the same time, I believe that for a more complete understanding of the author's approach, it was worthwhile to reveal its component in more depth, including when considering programs to increase the competitiveness of section 3 of the work. Continuing remark 1, I would like to note that the author's definition, there are contradictory in nature components. Components in nature such as the achievement of well-being while preserving natural social capital. I believe that the author has in mind the development of our country's competitiveness when finding a consensus between these goals. At the same time, the study of the parameters of this consensus, its reflection at different stages of the country's development and the programs for development of international competitiveness requires additional clarification. And the third, in continuation remark 1, I would like to note that the practices, the experience of Singapore, Switzerland, others show that in order to achieve international competitiveness, these countries first implemented progress to improve welfare and production productivity, and only then did they move on to the issues of preserving natural and social capitals. In terms of my recommendations, evaluation of parameters and necessary conditions of this non-linearity, consistency, and the achievement of the goals defined by those would allow the author to deepen the analysis of the experience of using programs to support international competitiveness in different countries of the world, and Russia and the world, add more practical orientation to the work. In conclusion, I would like to say that this dissertation of Popova, Antonina, Alexandrovna on the topic of competitiveness of a country meets the requirements of St. Petersburg University on awarding academic degrees of Candidate of Sciences and Doctor of Sciences and therefore Antonina Alexandrovna Popova deserves a degree to the third degree to be awarded to her. Thank you very much for your recommendations and your comments. Let me answer your questions very quickly. Regarding the issue of disclosing components of long-term welfare growth, it is worth noting that sometimes this term is used as a synonym of economic development measured in terms of GDP. However, this characterizes the welfare of the state only within the framework of one structural dimension, the market value of all final goods and services produced in the country. In search of the nature of well-being, Nobel Prize laureate Sen noted that consumer goods, which are one of the main components of economic growth, bring value to each person corresponding to their preferences and needs. Within well, there are many indicators that characterize a country's level of well-being. For example, average GDP per capita, gross national income, human development index. It is worth considering the degree of organization of the economic, social, political, financial, environmental, and other spheres of state activity. For example, by analyzing the level of social inequality, employment, consumption, education, sanitary and hygienic conditions, and the state of the environment and human rights. And could I shorten? I will agree with Sergei Felix. I asked my questions not to ask for your approach. I would just say that this approach should have been put into the dissertation. So, and to shorten this time, I just remark too. From the point of view of the author, the idea of achieving prosperity while preserving natural and social capital has a right to exist. In the short term, the increase in competitiveness can indeed be achieved through the extensive use of environmental social resources, but in the long term, their depletion will certainly reduce this indicator. For example, according to the estimates of the economist Rogozina, during the 80s, Indonesia's GDP increased by an average of 7% per year, but these results were accompanied by environmental degradation. The real level of economic growth, taking into account the depreciation of natural capital, was only 4%. As far as the programs of countries, how the programs of different countries compare with each other, and countries of different economic levels, and of course developing countries focus more on extraction and primary industries. At high level of economic development, public attention is directed to environmental problems. As far as the non-linearity, I agree that I would say that I agree with Druzhinin, Shkiperova and Potashev that at the early stage of the country's development, during periods of economic recession, environmental problems are of lower priority than during economic recovery, with increasing incomes. The pollution levels are decreasing. Therefore, it is expected that the most developing countries will be more inclined to develop programs aimed at increasing environmental capital, for example, through the introduction of environmental production practices and raising environmental standards. I have everything. Natalia Antonovna, if you would like me to answer, to dwell on some issue in more detail. Do you all agree? Are you all satisfied with the answers of Antonina? No, or do you have any no additional questions? So I see no additional questions. Therefore, I would like to turn to the next stage of our questions. No questions have been submitted. Then the academic supervisor, Olga Yurievna, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear members, dear candidate, dear members of the academic committee, I will not repeat what I wrote in my review. This corresponds to the review's remarks. I will just say a few words about Antonina Alexandrovna. She is a very prolific researcher. She produces new concepts, and it was easy for me to work with her. She is sometimes stubborn. Sometimes it hinders her work, and sometimes to stand up to the opponent. And she is very brave to enter an academic discussion on very complicated issues. I think that yes, this research work has flaws, but I look at this work from the point of view of artists. This is an impressionist work, broad brushes without minute, important sometimes details, and Antonina shows some things too emotionally, but with this work, Antonina makes an impression and shows avenues for further research and how to develop strategic development programs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Olga Yurievna. Do you have any other people who are willing to speak up? No one wants to. Any other questions by email? Then I would like to stop the discussion or receiving questions, and then we have 17:01 Moscow time, standard time. Before the vote, we can switch off the microphones. Do we need a break to deliberate the dissertation or the verdict? Anyone? Yes, maybe we should discuss a little bit. Then I declare a break for the broadcast to be of the candidate and the other members of the audience should leave the room.
Каждый член диссертационного совета выскажет свое мнение в поддержку или нет. И дальше мы делаем заключение. После этого мы делаем комментарий, который мы хотели бы сделать, но мы его перенесли по регламенту позже. Всех членов диссертационного совета устраивает такая процедура?
Да,
Хорошо. Тогда мы просим, пожалуйста, продолжить заседание.
The session is continuing. Dear colleagues, please switch on the broadcast. Can you all hear us? And the candidate and the members of the Dissertation Committee. I put to the vote the resolution to award the degree of candidate of economic sciences to Antonina Alexandrovna Popova. I just remind you that not less than half of the established members of the committee should vote in favor, but not less than three, not fewer than 3 members. So please, Alexander Viktorovich, I am in favor of the resolution. Pavel Vladimirovich, thank you. I am in favor. I'm considering that there were more positive sides to the dissertation than any drawbacks. In Galina Alexandrovna, following my review, I am vote in favor. Sergei Felixovich, I am in favor. Thank you. And Natalia Antonovna Navroska, I also vote for. We won't count because, dear colleagues, out of 5 members of the dissertation who participated in the voting, 5 voted for the resolution. There are no abstentions and no one voted against. So the decision to award Antonina Alexandra Popova an academic degree of candidate of economic sciences is taken. Concluding statement, but I would like to, after our decision is taken, so in what order will we listen to the candidate? Yes, please. Tanya Nelson, thank you very much, Natalia, for the conclusion. I'm very thankful to you for the positive assessment of my work, for your reviews and recommendations. They will help me to form a new vision of my dissertation and see new perspectives for my work. I'd like to thank my academic supervisor, Olga Yurovna, for the continued support and knowledge. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Antonina Alexandrovna. Members of Dissertation Council Committee who would like to speak. Pavel Vladimirovich. I already said I would like to wish the candidate of sciences to listen to the opinions of senior colleagues and I hope that this work will be a contribution to the future career of a researcher. Thank you very much. Who would like to say something? Sergey Felixovich. Thank you very much. Tanya, I congratulate you. Pavel Vladimirovich was very delicate. I will be very more open. Your defense was worse than we had expected. The way you answered criticisms of Natalia Antonina, and you just didn't. It shows that you didn't understand these comments. Well, in the future, you should take that into account when you're told something. You should receive something, receive this, but not only produce your vision. You know, stubbornness is good, but to a measure. Sergey Felixovich voiced a general take of the members of this. We were about unanimous, so that during the defense you tried to go beyond the work. Well, the academic discussion became this criticism should be accepted and accepted for the improvement of your work rather than to be so protective, and because these concerned quite minor things. And I hope that this experience was positive that you received today. You are very single-minded person. Try to direct your single-mindedness in the right way. Anyone else? And then, therefore, I would like to declare this session closed. Thank you, everyone, for participation. Thank you.